Doing this morning? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, thanks. And welcome to another photography chat live stream where we talk about photography. I try to answer some questions. And sorry, one second. My little device down here is yapping at me for some reason. But yeah, it's good to see everyone. Sorry for starting late, as always, fashionably late. But I've been busy this week doing stuff. But I'll share with you some of that. And also, what was I going to say? I was going to say, basically, I always like the audience, you guys, to drive the conversation. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I see there's a couple questions already early on, and so we'll just get right into it. God, my chat window. Let's see. I see Erna has a question there. I see David is here. Good to see you, David. And sorry couldn't make it yesterday. It was my nephew's birthday, so I had to go up there and celebrate that with them. So I couldn't make it to the morning photo walk. And good to see you, Marcia and Jeff. And another question from Erna. Okay. And then Wayne Cox, good to see you, and Roger and Thomas, good to see you. Oh, and thank you for the AV check there. I never know with live streaming if the audio and video is going to work okay. Let me see if my B cam works. Yeah. Oh, I got to switch the. There we go. Now we're good. That's the and it's bright. I'm gonna fix this. Oh, maybe not today. It's it's a little bit flaky. If I do this, making it worse. I'm getting this little streak down the middle. This is my EM10. It's dying. After 10 years, I guess that's reasonable. If I turn it off and on again. Nope, still there. Oh well. Not like I don't have another camera to replace that for the live streaming. And it looks really, really red. Everything looks red all of a sudden. What happened? How about this? This one looks normal. This one is way off. Eh, we don't need that camera today. Okay. Where's my thing? So let's go to the first one here from Erna. Erna785 says, "Hey Rob, good to see you again. Good to see you again, Erna. And how do you make autofocus continue without pressing AF on button all the time? I tried different modes. Yeah, it's not on the OM1. It's not possible, as far as I know. It used to be something you could do in the previous, like older Olympus cameras, but I never saw that setting in the OM1. But I'll double check. I'll just go into the menu. Let me get out of bulb mode. Okay, so menu, AF menu, pointer face, center, nope. Autofocus, nope. Speed, no. Clutch ring, no. Yeah, it's as far as I know, it's not doable. If anybody in the watching knows if there's a way to make this, basically what Arnold wants to do is just wherever he points the camera without touching any of the buttons, he wants the camera to continually autofocus. Now you can do that in video mode, but in photo mode, you always have to activate the autofocus one way or the other, as far as I know. Like I said, there was a setting in the older cameras, I forget what it was called exactly, that would allow you to uh, run the autofocus continuously. Actually, I might be able to show you on this dying camera over here. Let me see. I have to go over to the menu. Oh, it seems to be working now. But if I go into the menu, I think it's in the AFMF. Yeah, there was something called full-time AF here, and you could turn that on or off. So unfortunately, that I just don't see that setting anymore. Let me tilt this a little bit while I'm at it. Give it a little brightness and figure out why the white balance is so off. Probably got the white balance fixed. No, it's on auto, that's why. Bit the sunny there. Close enough. That little streak is gone now. It's me. I got this purple light over here. Maybe turn that down a bit. Sorry. So, okay, so that's not possible as far as I know. Another question I have is, how do I zoom in on the OM1? I want to shoot live bulb. I've combined the live ND with zoomed in subject. We have the 25 1.8. My only guess is just to use the magnify button, but you can't zoom in more than 2x. So let's try that. I mean, the real solution is to get a longer lens, but let's see, turn the clutch off. I'll go into bulb mode, go into the menu, digital, yeah. So yeah, you just want to turn the digital teleconverter on. This is the OM1, yeah, so I can show you in here. So the thing is, when you first hit the menu button, right, you go into the bulb settings, and then you go back, you keep pushing the menu button and it'll go back. And then on shooting menu number 2, you have a digital teleconverter and you can turn that on. And that'll give you 2x. So you'd have a 50 millimeter lens instead of a 25. That's about the best you can do. Okay. And let's see. Ernest says the OM1 has a video mode with 240 FPS and continuous shooting mode at 120 FPS. I want to shoot an egg smashing the wall, then pick a good frame. Is it better to shoot 240 FPS video or no 120 FPS continuous? Because you can shoot in RAW. If you shoot in 240 FPS, it's going to be kind of downsampled and not quite as crisp, and it's going to be a JPEG, right? Because it's going to be a frame from the video. So you're much better off using 120 FPS. The trick is, though, if it's the OM1 Mark I, you only have a 90 frame, 94 frame buffer. So that's not even 1 second, right? It's less than 1 second burst. So your timing has to be pretty impeccable. So push the so just, I guess you're gonna have to practice a little bit, maybe with just a regular tennis ball. Let it drop, and then time your, practice your timing a little bit at 120 FPS. I guess the alternative might be Pro Capture SH1, right? So use Pro Capture SH1 at 120 FPS and practice a little bit too with a tennis ball, and then practice, then try an egg. That would be the best way to do it. Okay, let's see. And ATR Bear is good. Good to see you. And Eric, I see you're here. That's a cool shot of that eagle you sent me. And I didn't miss much. Yeah, I looked at some of the pictures. Um, it's always an adventure though, right? You're always trying to find a new shot, even though you've been to a place a million times. I always try to find a new or interesting shot or try some photo technique. Like I probably would have tried ICM, right? Because it was very cloudy. So I'd probably practice my ICM a little bit. And X Meta, good to see you. And looking dapper and you sound coherent. Yeah, well, that's because I'm back on my Maxwell House coffee. Before, it was some kind of gourmet, like I call it the creative dial coffee, right? Those coffees, I don't know, that the one that I had, well, two different ones. I had to go through two bags of gourmet coffee before I could go to Maxwell House. And I don't know if they were decaf or what. The retro camcorder look. I do have a retro camcorder, but the batteries are dead. I need to get that fixed. But somebody gave it to me last week. Let me show you. Oh, man, just dropping everything here. It's a Vixia HFS S10. It has a couple of problems. The auto lens cap is stuck closed, so I'm gonna have to. It's just spring loaded, so I'm just gonna have to use some tape or something to hold it open. Not a big deal. And then of course the batteries are dead, but I know it works because when I plug it into the AC adapter, the camera comes on and works fine. It's just there's a little plastic thing that opens up here, a lens cover that's supposed to automatically open, but it doesn't. At least I can't figure out a way to make it open. Guess I could read the manual, but I did look in the manual. I couldn't find anything in the manual about opening the lens cap, but okay. And Roberto, good to see you. Yeah, so man, it's like early morning there for you, right? Way early, like 1 a.m. or something. Uh, it's a shame that digital cameras have a short lifespan versus old film cameras outlasting generations. Yeah, well, that's because they can get repaired pretty easily, right? So a lot of cameras, they get a CLA, clean lube and adjustment. But yeah, otherwise they last forever, like any mechanical device. As long as there's somebody to repair it, it'll last forever. I had to hit F5 to get this on my phone. I had to wait for commercial. I know. Hopefully the commercials are at a minimum while you're watching. And then after the stream's over, I go back and I delete like 20 or 30 ads out of the stream. It's crazy. Still gotta have a couple of ads, but not there's literally like 40 or 50 ads in a 2-hour stream. And I'm like, that's every couple of minutes. That's too much. And I don't know how to change it so it doesn't do that. It just so usually about an hour after the stream. So if you're watching this later, if it's been more than an hour, ideally the ads will be minimized because I go in and manually remove them. Oh, you're gonna post an ICM shot. Yeah, you should. Uh, Rob, I was looking into a new laptop, $1,000 max. Any recommendations? Uh, you'd have to be closer to 1100, but that's if you can stretch a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of good laptops. I have one on my deal page. Let me take a quick look. And Marco's really the best one to ask about this stuff. He's more up to date. Oops, that's not it. This one here. Okay, so this one here, we have a lot going on, right? We have the new Intel Core Ultra 7, which has the AI or neural processing unit, the NPU. Not a lot of software is taking advantage of that, but we're getting there, right? So once the app vendors or app software developers start taking advantage of the MPU, you're going to get really tremendous speed out of your apps going forward. We also have the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4060, which just about every app right now supports when we talk about photo editing and doing noise reduction and things like that. And then 16 gig of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. So the only caveat to this laptop is that the memory is soldered in. So you cannot upgrade this memory to 32 gig. So if if you think you're going to start doing video, then you probably want to skip this and get something that you can upgrade the RAM. Let's see. RTX Ultra 9, that's going to be expensive. Yeah. But this is a really, really good deal. And then I'm going to see if there's an MSI laptop that I really like. I mean, these are all older generation CPUs, and I want you to get the newest one. Nitro V 13900H. No. These things get expensive, right? All right. Now, if you really want to stay under 1,000, even after you add regular sales tax, this one is very limited though. I guess not. But let me tell you what I'm looking for. So I'm always looking for this new Core Ultra, right? It could be the 7 or the 9, but you're not going to get an Ultra 9 for under 1,000. But you might find a Core Ultra 7 with the 155H. Okay, this is important for around this price. The video card, I like to have at least a 4060 an RTX. This is the word you're looking for, RTX. Now they have a 4050, which will probably be fine also. Okay, but the 4060 is a significant step up from the 4050. See, there's a 4050 here. It's worth it, the extra bucks, to get the 4060. It has to do with the memory architecture is much faster, so it's going to process things much faster. Even though they might have the same speed and everything like that, it's the memory bus or the communication with the motherboard is much faster with the memory. And sorry, I misspoke. But yeah, from the 4050 to the 4060 is a big step up. And then at least 16 gig of RAM. The only downside to this particular laptop is you can't go higher. But for photo editing, it's not a big deal. For video editing, you're going to be fine. It's just going to be a little bit slower than something that has 32 gig of RAM. And then a 1 terabyte SSD. So these are the key things. So if you can find a laptop with all of these things for about $1,000 or less, you're going to be very, very happy, I think. And then all of these laptops now have Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt USB-C is another thing that I look for. And I know this one has it. It may not say it, but let me see. Thunder. It doesn't say it, but I know it has it. So that would be my recommendation. Okay. Look for those things. Stay at 1,000. If it says specific, oh, the other thing is the screen. You want it to be DCI P3. Most laptops now are selling that are creator with the creative intent, like photo and video. They're going to have a DCI P3 certification. So you want to make sure it has that as well, which that laptop does. Okay. What do you think of the OM3 compared to the OM1 Mark II? Which one would you recommend? I would get both. They're very different cameras. Mainly because, the OM1 is has basically, from a pragmatic standpoint, has the I think three significant advantages, right? It has a dual card slot for mostly that's for doing professional work, paid work. But if you're thinking about doing any paid work, having that redundancy is always good to have. Better to have it than not, right? The buffer, right? The frame buffer is like 200 frames or more. I don't know exactly, but it's like if you're doing any kind of birding, sports action, wildlife, the frame buffer is pretty significant improvement over, the 92, 93 frames that we get in the OM1. And in the OM3, the frame buffer is like 85, uh, and it's even less if you use the creative dial. It's like 67 if you're using one of the creative modes from the creative dial. So those are two significant advantages there. The third one is the battery life. Okay, the battery life, no, I take that back. They use the same battery. My bad. But those two things are pretty significant. And then, okay, so the handling, I'm just thinking of the grip. So the grip is a big deal. It makes it a little easier to handle larger lenses. So if you're rocking the 12 to 40 Pro all the time, uh, just holding the camera one-handed, it makes a big difference. Uh, and it's going to be more comfortable over time, during the whole day, to have the grip. So those are pretty significant advantages. Other people will cite the EVF is much better on the OM1. It's a little bigger and it's, yeah, certainly more resolution, but eh, that plays a very small role, I think, in photography overall. The exception being is if you like to punch in and pixel peep your images in the field to check for critical focus, having the high resolution EVF helps in that respect, right? But for me, I don't do that a lot in the field. I just take the picture and I keep going, right? Uh, and then also for video, the having the high res EVF is nice if you do video work, because video has not as much flexibility with like the colors that you see because it's only 10-bit instead of like 12-bit that you get in photography. So it helps us see which mode you're in. If you're like an OM log versus a natural color profile, it's easier to see with that EVF. That's the more visual thing. I mean, you should know your setting before you push the record button. But the workflow overall on the OM1 Mark II is better because of the EVF, the dual card slots, the deeper buffer. The OM3 is a smaller, lighter camera, and it's just as well made. Same weather sealing, I believe, and it's more about looks than it is being practical, right? So I think the OM3 makes a great camera if it's your only camera or if it's a second camera, which doesn't make sense, right? I'm saying the same thing, right? But uh, if you're already happy with, say, your OM1 and you don't care about looks, because I've met a lot of OM system users, they don't care about the retro looks, right? So it would never even be a second camera for them. They would buy another OM1, for example, uh, or another OM5. They would rather do that than have one retro and one traditional. But I think the OM3 is better suited for as your only camera because it can really do everything. And the frame buffer is not as limiting as you might think. But if you're a really hardcore sports action guy, then uh, and I assume you're a guy. I'm sorry. I'm not sure from your name if what it. Not that it matters, but if you're more of a sports action person, the OM1 is a better choice ultimately. And low battery question. I usually end up recharging a battery around 70%. Is there a benefit to running them down? Say no. There's no benefit. Uh, the new lithium technology supposedly, because there used to be a problem with the old NiCad batteries that if you didn't drain them all the way and recharge them, they wouldn't fully charge back. Things like that. But I wouldn't worry about it. If you can recharge it at 70%, go ahead. I would run them down to 20%, but there's no advantage, disadvantage either way. Not enough that you could measure over the lifetime of a battery. There may be some statistical difference long term, but not anything somebody could measure. And what is the highest ISO you use on the EM1 Mark II and EM5 Mark I? I'm not very good at manual ISO yet, but found that even at 3200, they look surprisingly good to my eyes. Okay, so I don't have any limits on ISO. I use whatever ISO will get me the shutter speed that I want because aperture you with aperture I use kit lenses a lot, but either way, aperture you get stuck at the wide open, then you have to start working with shutter speed. And shutter speed to me is the most important uh, setting in the exposure because I want to minimize motion blur or I want to exaggerate motion blur, one of the two. But shutter speed is a very creative choice. And I use whatever ISO I need to get the shutter speed that I want. Now, if I'm on a tripod, usually I try to pick the base ISO of 200 and not worry about the shutter speed as much because I don't have to worry about motion blur and things like that. So there's a lot of different scenarios where ISO is uh, is a tool in the camera, like you know, to help you control your exposure. I just watched a video by Maddie and Peter. I think it was on Maddie's channel where they talked about ISO is part of the exposure triangle. And then if you watch another video from Andrew Banner, he doesn't consider ISO as part of the exposure triangle, right? And I use that term very loosely, exposure triangle. Like what? I think that's a stupid term. Uh, but the short answer to your question is, if I was worried about image quality, then yeah, I'm fine up to ISO 6400, but it depends what I'm using it for. I would rarely deliver an image to a client at 6400, but if it's just for myself, I don't worry about it. Uh, I've shot many images at ISO 10,000 and then I clean them up with DxO Photolab. But even if I didn't, I'd say up to 6400 is pretty good because a really good way to compare or to get a feel for, I mean, get a feel for it, just shoot for yourself at different ISOs and see what you like or don't like. But, DP Review has if you go into sample images, then go down here to Studio Scene Comparison Tool, right? And I can put in like, let's say OM1, and let's do a Canon. Let's say R5 Mark II. Let's do a Nikon. Do a Nikon Z8 and let's do an A7 IV. Okay. these are various types of cameras, right? So these are high res, full frames. This is a let instead of this, let's do instead of two, let's do a APS-C. What's their new APS-C? Z50, right? The Z52. Okay. Anyway, here's some various cameras, right? High res full frame, normal full frame, normal APS-C. And then just crank it up to ISO 6400. And then what I like to do in here is just look at the letters. And I just kind of compare the letters from all these, the screens from all of these. Can zoom in a little bit. And it looks fine to me. And if you shoot JPEG, um, wow, look, they all look about the same, really. But I also like to look at the letters to see what I can read. Of course, the very high res, you can read very easily. I can read all of these pretty easily. Right, this is a 33 megapixel. That's not even a 24. Let's get a 24. Canon R8. So it's fine. Then pick a subject over here. So I think, with the high res, you can see the stitching still, but a little bit here and a little bit here. Go over to the face, kind of compare that. So for those of you that want to, haven't bought a Micro Four Thirds or thinking about a different Micro Four Thirds camera, you can just go to the DP review site, dial in the cameras and ISO that you want to compare, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's a good baseline. It's very consistent shot to shot, so that's the good thing. Ultimately, and then you can download the files and bring them into your computer and look at the raw images and then post-process them how you like to post-process them. So I used to download their sample images and post-process them with DxO and compare, say, an A7R5 with, my EM5, whatever. Okay. Um, but yeah, ISO is kind of irrelevant to me. But if I want a clean image, I'll always use the lowest possible. And a 6400 is not bad. It's easy enough to fix and post-processing an ISO 6400 image, or just use the JPEG, and it's not bad. But when you want to maximize dynamic range and all of that, of course, base ISO is best. Let's see. And I shot a moon trail with the OM1 Mark II using f22 aperture at 100 ISO. There were no hot pixels. However, the sky looks more faint and gray. I can't see. I can see why live composite would be better, like you suggested. Yeah, live comp. Wow. F22 though. F22 is probably introducing some of that softness, making it look a little faint because of diffraction. Um, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by moon trail either. But live comp works well, generally speaking. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what kind of shot you're trying to make, Erna. You'd have to show me an example, and then I could probably give you a little better feedback. Oh, a 30-minute exposure moon trail. I still not sure. I've never done moon trail. Let me just look it up. Oh, okay. So you're talking about something like this. Yeah, live comp would be better because it would measure the light the one time and then go all the way out. Because if you use a bulb, yeah, you'd have to stop down to f22 so it wouldn't overexpose. But live comp would be better. You could set the exposure one time, on the moon initially, then it'll say the same exposure for throughout that length of time. And there's no time limit on live comp, as far as I know. I think it's like four hours or something. So you wouldn't even have to stop at 30 minutes. So definitely live comp is the way to go. And Gary is here. Hi, Rob from sunny Southwest UK. Just got my OM3 and finding the CP button so useful. Really like the way you can turn the select computational features on and off. Yeah, I love the CP button. Definitely. It lets me take advantage of the CP features very quickly. Whereas, it was always a menu dive before, so I didn't use them quite as much. But now that it's right there, it's just quick to just go into, like, I like using the grad ND filter now. Uh, as for laptop, look for a graphics card separate from the CPU. Exactly. So that was the graphics card is like the RTX 4060 that I mentioned. An RTX 4050 will get you there most of the way, but I think, yeah, it's better to just spend a little more and get the 4060. The OM12 buffer is 256 raw at 50 frames per second and continuous autofocus, or 213 raw frames at 120 FPS. Okay, so yeah, virtually 2 seconds of shooting there, because once you fill up the buffer, uh, you got to remember it's continually writing uh, images to your card, so the buffer may go a little further, right, than 213 frames before your shutter really starts to slow down. And Wayne says, I went out on a photo walk yesterday, two bodies, OM1 Mark II, 12-100 f4, OM3, 21.4. Got the OM1 mostly in black and white. I don't notice a difference between the viewfinders. Yeah, it's not much difference. You really have to just constantly, look at them right side by side and really look for it. Uh, I mean, some people are a lot more sensitive though. They can spot it right away, but I'm not one of those people. And oh, so you shot the OM3 in black and white, yes. And then Jeff says, I modified an EM10 Photodiox Pro for my OM3. It's a good stopgap until a decent third-party grip comes along. Yeah, so yeah, Jeff sent me a picture of what he did. It looks pretty good. It's not too dissimilar from when I mounted my EM5 grip onto, my EM5 Mark III grip onto my OM3. Uh, it makes a big difference in the handling if you add a grip. Uh, so I'll probably just go with a half case though. And DxO Pure Raw is coming out soon. Is it part of PhotoLab? No. So anything that they do in DxO Pure Raw 5 does not get put into the current PhotoLab. At least it hasn't in the past. Usually what happens is they're going to release DxO PhotoLab 9 that will incorporate whatever Pure Raw 5 has. That's what they've always done in the past. I don't know why they would change. Same question as Roger. Yeah. So don't expect that. And Joe Edelman has some good discussions on selecting max ISO you are happy with. Yes. So Joe Edelman is one of the best educators, if not the best, in my opinion, when it comes to photography. But uh, basically, just take a picture of a typical scene that you would take at ISOs all the way up to the max, and then look at them on your screen and see which one you have a tolerance for. To me, it's like I said. To me, ISO and noise are irrelevant to me. And hey, Rob, good morning and hello from Maryland. Hey, good to see you, Zoltan. Good morning. David says ISO in the film days was irrelevant as we're pretty much stuck with ISO the film that was only 100 or 400. Yep. Are ISO standard across cameras brands? Generally, yes. Uh, I think they try to be. So when I shoot, I've noticed that when I shoot all my different cameras at the same ISO shutter speed aperture, generally the exposure is pretty close. They're not off by much, maybe a third of a stop at most. The one that's probably the most egregious, though, is Fujifilm. I have noticed that the exposures, I think, look darker on the Fujifilm at the same ISO than any of my other cameras, maybe even by a full stop. So, but if someone recommends settings to you, it almost doesn't matter what camera they were using, whether it's even film, but generally speaking, the ISO should be pretty close. They calibrate the ISO 100, 200 match, a certain light level or luminance. And most cameras, yeah, I haven't noticed any difference. Hi Rob, does DxO recognize OM3 raw files or have they added? No, it does not. So what I've been doing is using EXIF tool and EXIF GUI uh, to change the file from OM3 to say OM1 Mark II, because OM1 Mark II uses the same processor and sensor as the OM3. So that's what I've been doing. So I'll just name it here. If you Google it, it'll come up EXIF tool and EXIF GUI. I was thinking about doing a video, installing these and then um, showing how to change it. I mean, I can demo it right now, actually. I'll just show you real quick. So let me pull up Photolab. Is it coming up? I have to get through. It's going to take a minute to load here. 1 second. Let's see. Um, okay. Almost there. Now my hard drive's got to spin up. Okay, there we go. So I took some pictures yesterday, just driving by my car. But these are the JPEGs, right, for the OM3. But when I get to the ORF, you can see that it says this image cannot be processed, and so it's taken with a camera not supported. So let me go to this. This was my nephew's birthday that I went to. So this is image number 6960.orf, right? So I can go into EXIF tool. You have to have access to EXIF tool, which is a command line, software, but then you can add EXIF GUI, and EXIF GUI will let you work with it, in a more traditional way. So basically, this is the file explorer for EXIF GUI. So I sort by file extension, and then I scroll down to the ORF. So there's the first one, right? So let me not select it here, just in case there's some conflict. You can see that the EXIF data says, wow, this is really small print. Let me see if I can make the print larger. Let's try 250%. Okay, so that's a little easier to read. So it says OM3, right? So what I do here is I go down here, I change it to OM1 Mark II, like that. And it has to be the exact EXIF name as the OM1 Mark II. If you don't have the OM1 Mark II, that's what it is. And I hit enter, and then I do save. And grid index, why am I getting an error? Probably because I changed the screen size. Let me close this and reopen it. Try this one more time. I'm going to go to by type. To see the file. Okay. OM3, OM1 Mark II, like that. Hit enter, and then save. Okay. So now if I go back, you can see that this file is now, I can open this file and edit it. And then rather than do them one at a time, right? What I can do is just highlight, let's do another one, right? So I'll do OM1 Mark II. Hit enter. Oops, wait a minute. That's doing it one at a time, but let me select them all at the same time like that. OM1 Mark II. Hit enter and then save. And when I hit save, I want you to look down here. Okay, so I'm going to hit save, and it's going to update all these files, and it's done. So now when I go back into Photolab, you can see all the files are opening up now. But over here, you see it says OM1 Mark II now. And now it can open it up. And I can process these just like any other raw file. Okay. I should make a video though, because hardly anybody watches my live streams. But when I make a video, seems like more people watch it. Okay, let's see. And if you want the moon as a time lapse at long interval shots, a short shutter speed, moon is very bright. If you want sliding moon, use live. Okay, so what Pika is referring to is if you want to get, if you want to do a shot more like this one, then the interval timer would be better. Right, you would take a shot, and stack them in post. I think. I've never done shots like that before, so. But thank you for distinguishing between the two types of moon trails. Okay, and oh hey, good morning, Rob. OM3, is it a better camera for you due to the actual new features or more for the form factor and customizations? All that most are mentioned is the color wheel. It's the form factor. I just like how it looks. It's a purely cosmetic decision, but it also has more features than my OM1 Mark I, like the Live Grad ND, right? So I can use a graduated ND filter in camera. And the autofocusing is actually just a hair better, just a hair, because it has the OM1 Mark II autofocusing versus, say, the OM1 Mark I, which is really good anyway, but the OM1 Mark II is just a little better at detecting faces and Ellie and birds and things like that. So it's a tiny bit better in that respect. But it's I would say it's probably 90% just the form factor. I just think it's a beautiful camera. It performs well, etc. Okay, and thanks, Rob. That helped a lot. Oh, you're welcome. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I'm always happy to help. And thanks for your help with DxO. Much appreciated. Yeah, I love DxO. If I love the product and I use it all the time, it's easy for me to help you because I run into the same problems anyone else would. And over time, I will have solved more of those problems, right? Like um, using an OM3 and DxO until it's actually supported. Because I've run into that problem before where the software wouldn't recognize the camera because it was too new. And I just went in the exit data and changed it. Now, you can't put in a camera like OM1 Mark 1. It'll process regular RAW files, right? But the difference I found was that when I was trying to process the high-res shot mode files, those are 14-bit now in the OM1 Mark II and the OM3, whereas in the OM1 Mark I, they were 12-bit high-res shots. And the images were way overexposed when I tried to process the high-res shot files on the OM3, but I changed the EXIF data to say OM1 Mark I, and they were coming out overexposed. I was still able to process them, but I wasn't getting all of the data that would be available otherwise. So once I put in OM1 Mark II, the high-res shot images uh, were being processed at its 14-bit depth or whatever. And Ernest says, oh, my chat just jumped all the way up. It did. Scroll down to the bottom. I want the renaming of my sets, the OM3. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. The renaming of my sets. Uh, yeah, that's pretty handy. Um, so I have a post on my community page. Let's go over there. Oops, that's not it. This one. If you go to my community page on my channel, I posted a group of presets that you can download to your OM3. And there's more details here. So you can download it right here directly. If you know how to save and export settings using the OI Share app on your camera or on your phone to your camera, you can download this right now and just use this, okay, if you know how to do that already. I'll make a video about this later. But in this download, I have C1 through 5 all set up. So C1 is the my street photography settings. Let me zoom this in a bit. So C1 is my street photography settings. C2 is my cyberpunk, but you have to turn the creative dial to the art mode. And then C3 is my Polaroid setting, and C4 is you set your creative dial to color, and in C4 I have 4 color profiles set up. So the first one here, I spent a lot of time on creating this one. This is the simulate the Kodak Elite Color 200 film, and then I have what I call a ciner. This is the cinematic look. Then I have the Chrome 64, which is a Kodachrome 64 simulation. This I got from years ago with the Pen F that I pulled off from a post from the Micro Four Thirds forum, mu43.com. Uh, and then I have the Fujifilm Provia film simulation, and then I have one monochrome profile, Mono 4, to simulate Fujifilm Acros. And then C5 is the same as C4, but I have it set to shoot in manual mode at ISO 400. So flip your screen over so you don't see it and put it on manual focus lens and shoot like a film camera. I also did some button reassignments in these custom modes for manual focusing mostly. So you can magnify, turn peaking on and off, and then lock your exposure with the AEL button. Oh, there's a typo here. And of course, as always, you can make a donation. And then in the download itself, uh, where's my phone? No, oh, here. It doesn't show. If I have it on my screen, maybe I can show it that way. Yeah, I have a screenshot. So, when you download the custom settings to your phone for your OM3, if you look in the description or the notes here, I do have, oops, I do have everything kind of spelled out. Not everything, but the ones that matter, right? So I have all this. And initially I was thinking about just making it for members only. Because yeah, I spent a lot of time creating this. But then I said, ah, what the heck, just give it away to everybody. So if you have the OM3, try those out. They're not bad. They're not bad. I gave a few examples there, photo examples and stuff, but it doesn't matter. It really depends on what you're shooting, how much effect those individual profiles are going to have on your image. Uh, because they're all sensitive to saturation. So for example, if you have a lot of red in the scene and I desaturate the reds, it'll make a big difference in the image. But if you're taking a picture of a blue sky, desaturating the reds aren't going to make any difference, right? Because there's no red in the sky, in a blue sky. So it's very dependent on the colors in the scene of the image that you're taking, how much effect these individual profiles are going to have. Uh, the biggest change is really in the white balance. I fixed the white balance to the sunlight or daylight right around 5300 Kelvin, I believe. And then I do some minor tweaks, a shift to magenta, shift to green, or shift to blue or amber, some minor shifts here and there. Uh, and the way I did this is I took because trying to emulate film is futile, okay? You're never going to get that film look from a digital camera, just in my opinion. You could do it once, but you can't do it consistently shot to shot to shot to shot, right? You can't just make one preset and make that work for every shot going forward, unfortunately, because film is, film is just different. And a lot of people love how the film colors look. I like a lot of the images I've seen taken with film. But the idea is that these recipes that I've created will give you a very different look and give you sort of a nostalgic feel to your images, right? And it's just having a lot of fun with it, right? So I think and I created the profiles in Workspace as well. Where is that? I'm going to open up Workspace. I'll show you. Okay. While that's opening, I will go into some more of the chat. And John Follows is here. Good to see you. And 63 watching. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thanks for being here if you're watching. Any thoughts on On1 software? No, I've not used it, so I don't have any thoughts on it. I think I tried it once years ago, but it kept crashing on my computer, so I didn't bother with it after that, and that's been years. And then Ravi says if the light is good, high ISO does not matter. If the light is low, even low ISO does not help. Although DxO helps cleaning up the noise, it cannot make up for loss of detail in poor light. I will add a little caveat to that. Or let me deep dive a little bit into that. So if you're shooting in good light, definitely the noise is mitigated quite a bit, particularly the chroma noise or like the red, purple, green spots everywhere. You're going to get very little of that when the light is good. because you're saturating the sensor more and your signal to noise ratio is better. In low light, the signal to noise ratio is very poor. You're going to see more noise than you will light subjects, right? So the speckles like the green, red, all of that is going to be very, very noticeable because there's not as much light. Now, that said, it's not too bad if you're not trying to push the shadows in post-processing. You can shoot in low light, just don't try to bring up the shadows, right? Use the shadows and try and crush them to black if you can, completely, right? And then very simple denoise will clean up the chroma noise. But to take it a little further, because noise hides in the shadows. And that's a saying that comes from the idea of the signal to noise ratio, right? There's more noise than signal, signal being the light. Uh, Now, when it comes to making up for lost detail, DxO does a better job than any other software in pulling out details, in my opinion, in pulling out the details from a raw image than any other software, particularly when we're talking about low light scenarios. So I would just add the caveat that when you say, although DxO helps in cleaning up noise, it cannot make up for loss of detail. That is a true statement, irrefutable. However, if there's any detail to be had, DxO will pull it out better than any other software. So let me just add that little bit of nuance to that answer because it's a little bit incomplete in that sense, right? It's an absolute true statement, but it's not. It doesn't tell the whole story, so to speak. And don't forget the thumbs up, hit the like button. Thank you, Jeff and Adam. You guys are so cool. Thank you so much. Uh, let's see. Um, okay, wow. Am I caught up on the chat? If I missed the question, just ask me again because it's too hard to scroll up and down the chat to find things. Okay, so let me show you a couple of purchases I made. I'm going to do this again on Tuesday for my shopping live stream, but these are kind of cool. Uh, so, I got the Leica Deluxe 8, but really, any camera that doesn't have a tiltable screen, right? I got this like, I think Snappy did one. Snappiness? I forget the name of his channel, but he DIY'd one of these. He made one himself with a 3D printer and a really runaway video for him. He makes a lot of great videos. But this is basically there's a prism in here, right? Or an angle, a mirror, at a diagonal so that when you look down, you see what's in front of the camera. It's basically waist level. So if I put my hand up here, and it has frame lines, right? Or 28 millimeters is the whole frame. Then there's a 50 millimeter and a 35 millimeter frame lines. And I don't know. It was like $30, right? This thing on Amazon takes like a week to get it. But yeah, it took about a week for me to get it because it's coming from China. But I think somebody in China watched Snappiness video. Because Snappiness, I think he provided the 3D printing model, whatever you can download. I think somebody just downloaded that in China, copied it, and then now is selling it. Fine by me. I don't have a 3D printer anyway. But yeah, I think he missed an opportunity to make a couple bucks from selling it uh, and making his own. But anyhow, this is pretty slick, right? Oh, you can't see it if I point it up, but I'm going to put a link to this in the chat. It works pretty well. It's pretty accurate. Now, if I focus on something too close, there's parallax error, and it's not quite as accurate. But once you get to about 2 meters or 6 feet out, the frame lines and everything are pretty accurate. I was surprised. Let's see, I should have it on my page. If not, I need to add it. Ah, I don't have it there yet. Uh, yeah, it's right here. I'll talk about this on Tuesday, unless you guys want me to talk about it now. But this half case was like 90 bucks. It wasn't cheap, but it had everything I wanted in a half case, uh, which I can get into later, but because they have cheaper half cases. I found some for like 30, which uses pleather instead of real leather. I would be fine with that, but it was lacking one other feature that makes this one stand out, and the reason I bought this one. It's not perfect. I mean, it fits perfectly, but it's not perfect for me. I wish the bottom plate was just a little bit bigger. Made this an Arca Swiss instead of just round. It would have made it a little bigger, but I would have been fine with that compromise. So I don't have to add an Arca Swiss plate to the bottom. But other than that, this thing is perfect. Okay. Uh, it just has the two frame lines. So it's 28 millimeters is the full frame. Then there's a 50 and a 35, and that's it. Anything smaller than that, it'd be hard to frame anyway, I think. I have enough trouble. Uh, my problem is that I can't, this is too close. This is the problem I ran into. This is too close for me. It's sharp and clear, but I have to put my glasses on to see it. And of course, I can't hold the camera out like, way down here. I could, but so if you have good eyes, like you can look close like this, you're fine. But for me, if I take my glasses off, I can't see anything. So I didn't count on that. It'd be nice if there was a little diopter for this too, right? Oh, the other thing is you can slide this left and right. So for example, it's blocking the buttons or the dial here, but I can slide this over so that it's not blocking anymore. So this is pretty slick. And you can use it on any camera, really, even if it has a flip screen. It's just kind of cool. Use it on a film camera. I got like a bunch of film cameras. It'd be kind of cool to use that on. And then Shri, hey Shri, how are you? Three-way gear head versus tripod head versus gimbal. I'm having stability issues with tripod head mount while taking astro pics. Uh, I would go with, I mean, it really depends on when you say astro pics, are you talking about wide field, like doing Milky Way shots? Or if you're talking about deep sky, right? Then you need a whole different type of mount. But for my money, of the choices you got there, gimbal is probably going to be the least stable, right? Tripod head and gear head, they're both going to be very stable if it's a quality gear head and tripod head. But when you look at tripod heads, for the most stability, it's not usually the tripod head that's the problem, it's the legs that are wobbly. So you need to do a couple of things, right? Is spikes help a lot. If you have spiked feet for your legs, then you can push the tripod into the ground. right? So you push it down into the ground, the spikes go into the ground. That makes it very, very stable. If you don't have spikes, something to weigh the tripod down, but make sure it doesn't swing or move. So what I use is this. Is this thing. Is this goes around your tripod of each leg like this, right? So you have loops here. So I'll try and demo this. Like this. Oops. Ugh, it's always awkward when I'm doing this live. These are like $10, okay? I do have this on my deal page. But what happens is, these go around all three legs, and then you put rocks or put whatever in here to weigh the tripod down. And also, if your feet are this one has spikes on it. These are very short, but it's better than nothing. So if your tripod has spikes available for it, put those on, or in this case, they're already on. And then once you put your tripod on the ground, push it down like this. And that'll make sure your legs are very, very stable. And then as far as the tripod head goes, really, the bigger the ball head, the better, right? The more stable and the smoother the action's going to be. The other thing is, try not to use a tripod that has extension arms. You want a tripod where the base, the one that I have that has no extendable arm is in the car. But tripods that just have the base here without the extension arm, and you mount the ball head directly onto the base. So you have no way to extend the tripod, but that's the most stable. So you get one of those tripods with spikes and a little bag here to weigh something down. The problem with the hooks, right? Problem with the hooks is if you hang something, there's potential for whatever you're hanging to swing, and that's going to introduce motion blur into the image. So it's not so much the ball head or gear head or gimbal. It's more has to do with your base. So your base has to be very strong, but tighten it. I think you have one of the extendable type tripods. Most people do. Tighten that down as much as you can and leave it at the base. Never extend it up, okay? So if you do have an extendable base or center column, don't shoot like that. Always bring it down to the base and tighten it. Tighten everything as tight as you can, right? Push the tripod into the ground and then use weights. These are like $10 or $15. And if you're good with a sewing machine, you could probably make one, but okay. That's what you need to do. And then use a remote shutter. Don't touch your camera, right? Use a remote shutter. Or if you don't have a remote shutter, a black card. So put the black card in front of your lens, push the shutter button to start the exposure, then move the black card away. And that should minimize the motion blur. And then if you're in bulb mode or something and you want to end the exposure, excuse me, you can put a black card to block the lens, any light, then turn the shutter off. So you may be introducing motion by pushing the shutter button. So either use a remote trigger or a black card. And that will also minimize any motion blur you might get into your shot. So I wouldn't worry too much between three-way gear head and tripod head. Both are going to be pretty stable, but I think a tripod head would be the most stable. Okay. Um, oh, Marco walked in. Hey, Marco. How's it going? ISO has zero impact on noise. ISO is simply brightness amplification. Noise is determined by shutter speed and aperture, which actually dictate how much light hit your sensor. Yes. So again, signal to noise ratio, right? Higher ISO makes your shutter speed shorter, right? So you're getting less light into the sensor. Hence, your signal to noise ratio is lower. Okay. Oh no, grab Rob's credit card. Love seeing what he purchases. Usually so much useful stuff than other stuff people recommend. Thanks. I do have one other thing. But again, what Mark was saying is 100% true. ISO is an amplification through actually software inside the camera. It's like turning up the slider in Lightroom to brighten the image. But the noise is already there. It's a signal to noise ratio. How much light are you getting in versus how much noise does the camera generate on its own? Let's see. If you really want a cool vintage finder, check out the Soviet-made Universal 28 to 130. Oh, interesting. Look into that. Let's see. Soviet viewfinder 28 to 135. Oh, that's interesting. So I don't know which one you're talking about, but it might be this. I have no idea how that would work, but that is very vintage looking. That's cool. Huh. Okay. Um, oh, Lasse's here. Good to see you. Came in from a photo walk. Awesome. So if you take 3 shots with identical shutter speed and aperture and over and under exposure with ISO, the noise profile will be exactly the same. I believe that is true. Yes. There might be some very, very subtle differences. Uh, but for all intents and purposes, that is a true statement. And Ravi said, thanks, Rob. Yes, could not key in further. Appreciate your response, making it a rounded one. Okay. Uh, gosh, my short-term memory is really bad. I can't remember what question you asked me, but I'm happy to help, I say. Um, and Shri says, hey, issues photographing moon during the eclipse, making tiny adjustments, and also Orion without trackers. Oh, okay. So you're talking about very deep sky like the Orion, so you're going to be using a really long telephoto lens. Man, uh, yeah, you're going to have to, I would make sure you have a really big ball head. You're going to be using your telephoto lens like the 300 f4. Yeah, you need a pretty steady tripod. A small one's not going to cut it because the legs are going to be too thin and they're going to flex. And the other thing I would do is I would have like about a 1 minute delay with a super telephoto lens. Because as soon as you push the shutter button, it's very hard to see, but there are very minor vibrations going on, uh, particularly with tripods that have skinny legs. So you need to definitely put in a 30-second, if not a 1 minute delay from the time you push the shutter button to the time it actually starts to take the exposure. And of course, use silent shutter. Don't use mechanical shutter. You want to avoid shutter shock. Okay. Uh, and my understanding is that higher ISO increases gain. No, the sensor does not change. It captures a certain amount of light. The ISO is done after the sensor's captured the light. It doesn't. You can't like add voltage or something to the sensor. The sensor is fixed. It has a fixed amount of light. It has a fixed, basically, sensitivity, the base ISO 200 or whatever. It's really all arbitrary when we talk about ISO numbers. And the gain is actually done after the data is collected off the sensor with the raw data. And then, they just amplify it that way. By raw data, I'm not talking about the raw file. You collect the raw data off the sensor, you adjust the ISO in camera, and then it creates the raw image. And yeah, that's how that works. Okay, I think I said that right. I mean, we're really getting into the weeds, right? If the ISO's too high and you don't like it, just lower the ISO or use a longer shutter, just capture the image. Don't make things so hard or complicated. But from an academic standpoint, academic curiosity, I think I can see where you're going, but and Jeff says, don't use a tripod much, but when I do, I prefer a fluid head to a ball head. I find it easier to make small adjustments. I think you're talking about yeah, like more of a video type tripod. And Simon the Tremont has an excellent explanation with example images, but I can't find it at the moment. Yep. Simon is really good at making videos. Let's see. Maurice says, Rob, I've been taking picture for years. What I'm starting to do video and with my OM cameras, I got the OM3. You critique one of my videos right now. Ooh, I would be a really bad person to critique. But you can email it to me and I can look at it. So just rob@robtrek.com. Just email me a link to the video and I can look at it. Okay. Cool looking vest. Rob looks cool. Oh, thanks. I bought this vest years ago. Uh, I bought two of them. I bought one, this sort of khaki green, and then one in a navy blue. I'm starting to not like them anymore. I've had them so long. I'm like just tired of wearing it. But then it looks okay, right? Speaking of Soviet, Rob, do you own any Soviet? I do not. Well, I think I do have a Fed 5 somewhere. Somebody gave me a Fed 5. David Tellett gave me a Fed 5. But I took the lens off it and adapted it for my Micro Four Thirds. It would be fun on the OM3, I think. I think it's right here. Yeah. So, ugh. But the problem is it's a 50 millimeter, so it's like a telephoto lens. But yeah, there's a I have it adapted for my Fuji camera right now, but I have the adapter for the Micro Four Thirds too. I think it's just an old M39 or something. What is this? Yeah, it's an M39 mount, so it's screw in. I bought a lens hood for it. There you go. It makes crazy pictures. It took a really nice picture of Ellie. I think I used it on my Pen F and took a nice picture of Ellie with it. I can pull that up real quick. I'm sure. It's a while ago. It wasn't that while ago. Maybe I don't have it here. Huh. Such a good picture of her. Where is it? Oh, here it is. No, that was with the Pen F lens. Where's the one? Is it this one? I can't find it, but I did take this picture. This is actually the Pen F 38mm lens. I love this soapy, swirly bokeh that lens gives. Gives a really nice vintage. But I took this. This I took with the Fuji, with the Pen F 35mm f1.8, and this one. Yeah, I took this with the Fujifilm with the Pen F 35 1.8. Yeah, really crazy swirly bokeh. Okay, let's see. Back when I bought the Fuji, I was like trying to adapt things, but gosh, I've hardly used that camera. And I know you probably said it earlier, but DxO Photolab, do you use it as well? Or strictly the raw processor? Also, do you miss the second card slot? I've never had a card slot fail yet since Micro Four Thirds. Yeah, okay, so to address the first thing, yeah, I don't use it. I use DxO Photolab for 99% of all my images. For my paid work, I have to do a lot of layering. So in those situations, because DxO Photolab doesn't do layering like Photoshop. So in those situations, I pre-process it and then export that to Photoshop. And then I do all my layering there with the processed images in DxO. So I just use the raw processing part in DxO to Photoshop. But for everything else, all my photo walks, all my images, everything else except when I have to do layering, I use DxO Photolab for editing the images, which I do every week on Tuesdays. I do live photo editing using DxO Photolab 8. And I don't miss the second card slot for everything. I have had memory cards fail uh, for one reason or another. Not like, I mean, out of like 20 or 30 SD cards I have like maybe two bad ones, but they do fail. Um, so for paid jobs, I use my OM1 with dual card slots. My Zorky shutter just died, but so did my Nikon F Photo. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you can get it fixed though. We were just talking about how you can always fix mechanical things. They last forever. You might be able to get it fixed, but I don't know if it'd be worth it. And the newer sensors have increased the signal to noise ratio compared to old sensors. Yes. Um, but it's not just the sensor, right? The sensor is basically silicon, right? So maybe they're using a higher purification now, but most of the noise is generated in the cameras, electronics and stuff, on the circuit board and all of that. And then just heat, right? They've made big improvements in keeping the noise away from the sensor that's generated in the camera. And George says, if the sensor size remains the same, what effect does changing the number of pixels have? Is the limit on the number of, I assume you mean, is there a limit on the number of pixels? Uh, okay, so basically, we're talking about pixel pitch, like the distance between the center of one pixel to the center of the next pixel, right? the bigger that is, the bigger each pixel becomes. Thereby, how much light is collected from one pixel, right? Because you have more surface area per pixel. So for example, a 24 megapixel full frame sensor has a pixel pitch of like 8, I guess. Let me see if I can illustrate this a little better. I'll give a link to this. Let me put this link in the chat real quick. Okay. So here's this A7S. It's a 12 megapixel full frame sensor. You can see the pixel pitch is 8.4 microns. Then if we go to, let's see, what are some examples here? Canon R. So this is a full frame. Okay, here's two right here. Let's look at these two. Okay, so we have a pixel pitch. This is a 20 megapixel full frame sensor, has 6.6 micron. This is a 30 megapixel full frame sensor. Pixel pitch is 5.4 microns. So basically, the one with 5.4 microns has less surface area than, say, a camera with pixel pitch of 6.6 microns. So, you know, if you measured it, this might be 5, this will be 6, right? So the larger the pixel pitch, the more light each pixel can gather, thereby having more signal compared to the noise. So your signal to noise ratio is going to be higher. So you're going to have more signal than noise, which in turn translates to less noisy images. Especially when you start using higher ISO, you know, all of that we talked about given, you'll see less noise. Okay. Now, if you take a Micro Four Thirds sensor, let's see if they have LMNO. Okay, so let's see. How about EM10 Mark IV? 20 megapixels. So you can see the pixel pitch here is 3.3, so it's about half of a full frame 24 megapixel sensor. So it's there's less surface area per pixel, so it's gathering basically half as much light per pixel as a full frame sensor. So that's why full frame sensors generally have at least a stop, if not 2 stops, more light gathering ability. Is because of this pixel pitch or surface area per pixel. Now, that said, your other part of the question, is there a limit to the number of pixels you can have on a particular sensor? And the answer is yes, because you don't want to make a pixel so small that it's smaller than the actual wavelength of the light, right? Because what's going to happen is the pixel might not even see that wavelength because the wavelength went over or under the pixel. So uh, let's say this is 1 pixel, right? So, and the wavelength of light is like this. It's you know it's gonna stay inside that pixel because it doesn't go over or under it. But a different wavelength of light might be taller, right? And it could miss the pixel altogether, like that. So this pixel will never see, say, the red wavelength or green or blue or whatever. So you can't make the pixels so small that they're smaller than the wavelength of light. Uh, that's part of it, right? The other thing is it'd be very difficult to make a pixel smaller than a wavelength of light because they use light to actually make the sensor, right? It's called lithography. So That would be hard to do. I'm not a manufacturing guy, so maybe there's new technology out there that can handle that. But as far as I know, you can't make a sensor or pixel smaller than a wavelength of light to begin with, because of it's lithography. But anyhow, there are micron or atomic microscopes that can see like individual atoms. But anyway, we're getting carried away. But when it comes to photography, yeah, you can't. There is going to be a practical limit to what that practical limit is. I don't know. It might be very close to what we're at now. Uh, okay, so let me see if I address that question. If the sensitizer range is the same, what effect does changing the number of pixels have? So that's the main thing, is each pixel gathers less light, so the signal noise ratio is going to be uh, lower. So you're going to get more noise compared to the signal. And then is there a limit to the number of pixels? Yeah. Basically, the wavelength of light, it can't be smaller than a wavelength of light. And different colors have different wavelengths, right? So, okay. George says, your vest is great. Women don't understand that we need the pockets for camera gear. Yeah. Dave Crooks turned me on to wearing fishing vests for photography, right? Because it has lots of pockets and buttons and places to hook things. When it gets a little bit warmer, I can wear that. And then when it gets too warm, I can't wear it really. I got one of the ones with the net backings and stuff, but I just end up stuffing everything in my messenger bag. Norm says, "Morning, Rob. After running several pictures through AI noise image processing, I'm really wondering why I would need to upgrade from an EM1 Mark III based on my photography." Yeah, I mean, if the denoising is giving you the results you want, there's no need to upgrade because you know now. Yeah, I mean, if you're happy with it, why upgrade? That's the bottom line, right? I mean, we can get into the technical differences, right? Of full frame 24 megapixel sensor is going to give you better signal noise ratio, hence better low light capability. But if you're getting the results you want with just denoising, why bother? Why waste the money? And Wayne says, I purchased Nikon ZF for adapting lenses specifically to avoid the MFT crop factor. Yeah, that's the only uh, kind of problem I have sometimes adapting my vintage lenses. It's hard to find wide angle vintage lenses. I mean, you can find a lot of 28 millimeters cheap, and that's almost good enough. It's still a little bit tight for my taste, but if I wanted to get like a 15 millimeter full frame vintage lens, they're expensive. You might as well buy the native one. Um, Norm said, is there a vintage adapted lens that you use that defies its age based on image outcomes? No. Vintage lenses look vintage to me. I don't have any really high quality glass. When you stop the lenses down, like the OM 51.8, the OM 24 1.8, vintage lenses, those are, I'm sorry, it's a 24 2.8. Once you stop them down, it's hard to tell the difference. But wide open, you can definitely see a big difference between vintage glass and modern glass. Now, that's not to say there aren't some very good vintage glass that you can shoot wide open, but they're probably very expensive, and that's why I don't have them. Benefits of DxO essential over workspace. The main difference is being able to do local adjustments. So in OM Workspace, if I just want to brighten up the one little spot right here, or this area down here, I can't do it in Workspace, you know? Like if I want to brighten someone's face, but not the rest of the scene, yeah, I can't. Can't do it in Workspace. In DxO, I can just use a local adjustment. That's the main benefit, is doing local adjustments. But you don't need to get DxO to do local adjustments. You can use free software like Darktable or uh, there's any number of free softwares out there. I know Darktable is pretty popular. But the main thing for DxO is the denoising algorithm, the optics module, and the overall workflow of doing the local adjustments. I find, works for me the best. And the Gray Vancini says, yes, even the film days, we'd use a fishing or hunting vest, way cheaper than a photo vest of the day. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Looks like I caught up again. I missed this. That is one of the ways to get the film days feel, using those vintage lenses with all the distortions. Yes. uh, Rob, if I only had a choice of one camera and one lens, what would it be? Gosh, I don't know. My answers keep changing. For years and years, it was always the Pen F with the 17, 1.8, or the Pen F with the kit lens, right? I'd say now it'd probably be the OM3 with a kit lens. This guy. That's what I shot with yesterday, is my OM3 with the 14 to 42 kit lens. And I have a little lens hood on here. Really not much use, but it does protect the front element, keeping my finger off of it. Why do they put the lens front and center where your finger goes all the time? Because they have to, but this is my favorite setup right now. This would be my one camera, one lens setup. I would miss the telephoto and a lot, like my 300 f4. But if I could do nothing else, it would be this. I'm trying to think, is there another lens that might be better without adding too much bulk? Hmm. I think the next lens up would be the 12 to 100 f4. I mean, if it was really, truly one lens, one camera, it would probably be the 12 to 100 f4. That lens is kind of big, but if that's all I could shoot with forever, that would give me enough versatility. But honestly, I'm not buying the 12 to 100 because it's kind of a big lens for really micro four thirds. It's one of the bigger lenses, right? I don't buy it because I can just throw this on, and if I want telephoto, I can get my 40 to 150 kit lens. And that combination, because I don't shoot much beyond the 40 millimeter focal length with for everyday shooting. I only throw on the 40 to 150 when I know I'm going to need it. But at 12 to 100, I rarely need anything beyond, like I said, the 40 millimeters. So I'm carrying all this extra lens for no reason most of the time, and that's why that's why I don't own it. But if it was truly one camera, one lens forever, I think I would probably compromise the size and weight to have that versatility in one lens. If it was going to be one prime lens, it would probably be the 25 1.4 from Leica. And what do you use for library management? Do you store on a NAS or on the cloud? I store everything on my hard drives. And I just use the file manager to organize my photos basically chronologically. So if let me open up this so I have this drive. This is my work drive. Really hard to see, isn't it? Let me see if I can make the screen bigger. So display settings, go to 250%. Okay, that's easier. So I have my work drive, right? And then in the work drive, I basically have one folder called media. So 2025, first quarter, and then by quarter, I have the individual days, and then I rename the folders, as I edit them. So I just did this yesterday. I haven't renamed these yet, but I try to rename these to whatever I'm doing. So like I went to Glen Echo, and then within Glen Echo, I might separate the camera. Like these are my Pentax monochrome images. But that's it. And then I separate clients here, and I separate projects that I might be working on, like I'm reviewing lenses or products. And then I have my videos in separate folders. So these are my YouTube videos, right? That I have, and then these are my personal videos that I use for vlogging. So there's probably B-roll in here and stuff like that. And then I have projects. Yeah, so I showed that. Other stuff. So if I'm teaching a class, I have classes. If I'm selling stuff on eBay, I might have photos in here. These are editing assets like stock photography, backgrounds, uh, DCP profiles. That's not photos, but that's basically how I do it. And then within the software itself, I use these projects. I'm starting to use these projects where I can group things together. Um, so here are my YouTube projects. Here's some monochrome images. Uh, family. Yeah, I need to organize this better. But I don't take advantage of this as much as um, I should. But I'm trying to get into it. It's really a powerful way to organize photos because it doesn't matter where it is on your hard drive. Um, and then I make sure I have two copies of everything. So I have, look at this again. So if we look at my PC, I have my work drive, which is, so C and D are in my computer. They're physically in my laptop. This is a USB drive, but see, I have drive number 5, drive number 7, drive number 8. Drive number 8 has, you can see here, I have 2024 on drive number 7 and 2024 on drive number 8. I also have my backups, like my document files and things like that on this drive as well. This is my backup drive. Um, but, if we go into 2024, I have a same idea, first quarter, second quarter, fourth quarter. Then within that quarter, I have all the folders named for the most part, if they're relevant. And that's what I do. I don't use keywords and uh, cataloging, all that stuff. But I have to say that if you are selling your photos individually, right, and licensing them, you do need a much more robust cataloging system so that you can find an image very, very quickly. The way I'm doing it's not going to cut it for that kind of work. If you're cataloging, so you might need to keep a spreadsheet with keywords. I can't speak to that as much, but I can tell you that there's no way I'd be able to find a photo quickly for a client if they wanted an image, that they saw online. Like they were looking at my Instagram, says, Rob, can you give me that image? Uh, I would I would have to look at the date that I posted it to Instagram, assuming I posted it the same day I took it, which I usually do within 1 day. Then I could find it probably pretty quickly, but it's not the same. It's not the same as having a very robust cataloging system like, uh, for example, if you're into architecture and you have different styles of architectural buildings, and a client asks you, says, "I want a colonial style, two-story, building," right? Then I couldn't look that up by date, right? I have to look it up by colonial style architecture and whatever other requirements they had, with gables, something like that. So, okay. I found raw therapy okay, but getting Darktable for black and white images. Yeah, I tried. I struggle with Darktable personally. The workflow, it just makes no I just don't know it. Uh, let's see. What would be the best way? Oh, and let me just add one more thing to Norm's question is, if the images are important to me or semi-important to me, I upload the JPEGs to Flickr, which I pay for. I get unlimited, JPEGs on Flickr. So I upload them there. So I have years and years, thousands of images of my family, right? There as backup, just the JPEGs. 'Cause ultimately, that's all that matters. Okay. And Crate says, what would be the best way to test new lens to get an idea if performance is acceptable? Is doing the brick wall the only way? Well, the brick wall has a lot of limitations, right? Uh, brick wall is fine for checking for vignetting at various apertures and corner sharpness, things like that. But there's more things like lens flare, uh, you know, focusing the lens at different distances from minimum to infinity and seeing the performance at these various distances. So, for example, if I'm shooting with a 12 millimeter f2, probably mostly going to be shooting close to its infinity. And that'd be very difficult to do on a brick wall, right? So you want to test, wider angle lenses at a distance and check for vignetting, corner sharpness. But it depends, what's important to you. Um, but yeah, that brick wall is not the only way. There's so many things you have to test for, like chromatic aberrations, which you would have to shoot like very high contrast images, like chrome on a car. Uh, on a black car is best for checking for chromatic aberrations, or the if you can find some branches against the blue sky, and again, you have to do these at different distances, because the optics in a lens change when you're focusing at different distances, and it'll perform better at long distances rather than close distances, or vice versa. Or maybe the performance is close enough from close to far that it's irrelevant, but you don't know until you test it. Most of the lenses that are tested, it's usually done all in computer based on the design of the lens, and they publish these MTF charts that tell you the sharpness corner to corner, and that's a good baseline. But there's sample variation, so testing it for yourself is the only way to know. Um, but the brick wall test is just one, and that's good for testing at short range, the corner sharpness and stuff like that. And corner sharpness is not that critical at short distances, right? Because usually you have to deal with objects in 3 dimensions, and your subject's in the center. The things around the subject are going to be out of focus anyway. So what difference does corner sharpness make? Um, So wide angle lenses typically want corner sharpness to be really good at further distances. And the only way to do that is just take a picture far away and look at it, right? But I wouldn't worry about it too much. There's also field curvature, all kinds of things. But ultimately, just I wouldn't worry too much about it. If it's a modern lens, you're gonna be okay. And if it's native, right, like Micro Four Thirds or Nikon Z to Nikon Z, native lenses, made by the manufacturer, a lot of corrections are done in camera to correct for chromatic aberrations, vignetting, uh, things like that, right? Things that can be corrected in camera, particularly distortion with wide angle lenses, wide angle zooms. So brick wall test is good for checking for distortions too, because those distortions generally are going to carry throughout the focusing range. But yeah, brick wall by far is not the only test. Yeah, the 12 to 100 is not, yeah, 12 to 100 is not big lens. I mean, relative to all the lenses we have to choose from, but it's not the lens I would take with me every day right now. I would take a 12 to 30, 12 to 12 to 40 or 14 to 42 kit lens with a 40 to 150. That would be optimal for me. But when somebody says one lens, I would say it's the 12 to 100. I take two bodies. Always have the 12 to 100 on one of them. Yep. That's always the solution. Have two. And Adam says one camera, one lens, whichever on body you can afford. EM1 Mark II through one and the 100 F4 Pro versatility range price. Yep, agree 100%. Uh, Honestly, those shopping cameras, the newer cameras aren't getting better images. They are just helping you get those better images now with features like stabilization, pro capture, live. Yeah, for the most part. Uh, I mean, it's been very gradual, but yeah, if you take like my EM10 Mark II and compare the image quality to say an EM10 Mark IV, you'll see a little difference. But it's very minimal. Just like, yeah, what you're saying is IQ has progressed incrementally. Yep, I agree. Because you see these videos all the time. My 10-year-old camera versus my modern, state of the art. Can you tell the difference between these two images? It's a loaded question, right? Or a loaded image. But things like pro capture, image stabilization, all these things give you tools that you didn't have before to capture images much easier. Like I think it was Erna was saying they want to capture an egg breaking, right? Pro capture makes that a lot easier. And David Hill says, I use remote SSD drive to store photos in a single photos file system with chronologically year, month, day, and name. I always name the files as soon as downloaded, but add DL to indicate not edited. Okay. Yeah, there's the idea of having uh, duplicate copies on site, a duplicate copy off site, like a physical hard drive, and then also cloud storage backup. I mean, these things are important for paid work where you are licensing your images and, the cataloging system, all that goes together. You can get carried away with that stuff. For me, my images are not that important. I could lose everything tomorrow. I'd be okay. I'll just go take some more, you know? I mean, I wouldn't want to lose it right after I did a client shoot. That would be problematic, right? But I have a workflow for my cameras because of the dual card slots that I never delete them off the second card until I have to, right? Once the card becomes full. I always have a backup for client work on an SD card until they're delivered. Then once the images are delivered, I don't worry about it too much. And if I lose everything, I'll be okay. It would suck, but for example, I lost all my emails for the last several years, but it's okay, you know? It kind of sucked when it happened. This happened about a month ago. My Rob at robtrek.com, every email I ever got on that, and I've had that email for years and years. I don't even, maybe 10 years. Because I was trying to save $6 a month. I'm like, why am I paying for Google Works? Maybe it was $8 a month. I'm not using it anymore. All the workspace features they have. So I canceled my account and they closed the email and it's gone. I was like, oh, because I had that email tied to that account. That sucked. And I was like, well, okay, you know, it is what it is. And the Nikon ZF is a fantastic camera. It is. I love Nikon. I love Nikon cameras. I shot Nikon for many years before really going Micro Four Thirds. And after I generate a clean RAW file, then save a JPEG and eliminate the DNG to reduce saving many large files, with thinking that I can always regenerate a DNG from the original file. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because DxO, so what Norma's saying is DxO takes your RAW file, creates a DNG file. Because you're using DxO Pure Raw, you're probably not using Photolab. Because I just edit directly in Photolab. I don't have to create a DNG file. But Pure Raw would create a DNG file that you can delete and just keep the RAW and regenerate. Yep, that makes sense. And Moray kills my car show pictures I get in camera, but then Photoshop Element makes it even worse. I gotta upgrade. Really? How would you be having problems with Moray on a car show photo? Just can't imagine what the problem is. Question, the KNF ND CPL 62, you say it is possible to see into the car. I'm considering purchasing one, but if a homeowner thinks I'm taking photos into the house, I will end up having to run something I'm too old for. Is the KNF ND CPL 62 intended for cars? No, it's just a general purpose tool, right? Like that's like saying, is a hammer intended for nails? Yeah, but you can use it for a lot of other things, right? Pounding spikes and stuff like that, but that's a bad example. But it's not intended for cars. It just works on cars because cars have glass. So it's intended to reduce reflections. So anything that has reflections. I thought, well, great. So the 17.1mm 1.8 version 2. So the brick wall test, going back to that, the brick wall test is good at testing the sharpness at different apertures because that's going to be pretty much consistent regardless of distance. So if you want to check the sweet spot of your lens, you can do that with the brick wall test. And the 17.1.8 is pretty wide, but I would do the additional testing at distance too to check corner sharpness. And hi, Rob. Sorry I'm running late. Turning in. Oh, no problem. But thanks for coming in. And AJ Cooper says, hey, Rob, couldn't sleep, so having a warm milk, then found out you're online, need to rewatch it in the morning. So I think what AJ is alluding to is a lot of people, at least in the past, have said my voice is so soothing, they use it to go to sleep. Today it's not so smooth, a little crackly, but I'm better than a warm glass of milk. That is true. Maybe I'm reading into it and that was not his intent, but just got an ad for Google Meet when Rob Trek was talking about losing his emails. Of course you did, right? Just back up your emails before you close your Google Meet account. That's all I can say. Okay. How are we doing on time? 2 hours. All right. I'm gonna drink a little coffee. I don't really have any images to show from this week. I took a lot of images. Most of them are crap. Let me see what I took. Today's March 16th, so we gotta go back to March 8th. Pictures of Ellie. Yeah, you guys don't want to see that. Ellie's the escape artist lately. I showed these last week. More pictures of Ellie. Some pictures of my friends. Uh, what is this? These are test shots, and then, yeah, these are test shots. So I don't have anything really. Let me check one other folder. Most of the stuff I did this week were like test shots. But I did like this one. This is one of my art filters that is in the OM3 that I get that you can download. I forget which one this is. This is definitely the cyberpunk photos. So if you compare this to, oh, I don't have the original. Okay, we'll skip that. So this is my cinema or ciner profile. You know, it's basically like a teal and orange. But the thing is, there has to be teal and orange in the photo, right? So the blue sky got tinted to teal, and the reds and yellows got tinted a little bit orange. So this is my cinematic profile. This, I believe, is one of my Chrome profiles. So it's kind of, you know, muted colors. And let's see. I did an HDR. Where is that at? I think it's this one. This is an HDR. This is a pretty nice shot. This friend of mine, Marie, we went to Reston Town Center, and there was a sunset. You know, we were trying to find this, you know, because it was about that time. So we were like, let's go out and get the sunset. So we went out. That's old school. I think this is like without the HDR effect. But this is a bracketed shot. So I took 5 shots plus or minus 2, then merged them together in Nick HDR so that I got the sunset, the skies, and the subject here all in exposed, right? So that you could see it. Otherwise, it'd be a complete silhouette. I thought this was kind of a neat shot, mixing the geometry of these curves together with the building. And for the building, I was very conscious of getting this line to draw your eye into the center. So there's a line here, draw your eye there. And this, yeah, this is just a shot with some color in it. There's nothing, you know, a little bit of motion blur on a subject, which I like. It's okay. This shot's very cliche. Uh, you know, bright red doors with a subject in front. And yeah, this is a shot of my friend. They had this like telephone booth outside with flowers around it, so we took a picture. Let's see. What is this? This is just a standard shot, nothing special. I just like the architecture in this area. Uh, this building in particular is really well designed. This building, this is a Microsoft building here in the center. And you can see they have the helicopter baffles up here. So I wonder if a helicopter's ever landed up here. But anyhow, that's pretty cool. This is again Reston Town Center. I have another shot of that building somewhere. Not really. And then, you know, lots of pictures of Ellie, pictures of my cameras, friends. Okay, nothing. Yeah, nothing up there really. I think yeah, okay. So that's what I did. That's really all I did this week is and these are all basically OM3 shots. Uh, there's a little bit there with my new Leica. This one came out pretty good. This is with the Leica LX or Deluxe 8. This came out pretty good. This is a good shot of Ellie. And I use flash on this one. So that's how I was able to get her nicely exposed compared to the background. And of course, flash brings out a lot of nice details too, right? So, and I was pretty close up. This is about the 50mm equivalent, and I was standing just a few feet from her, so I got a nice autofocus background too. Okay, that's been me this week on my photo walks and photo stuff. And let's see. So, what are your go-to cropping sizes? Basically 4x3 and 1x1. I always start there. Landscapes, I'll try maybe a 16x9. But if I want to do a vertical, a lot of times I like to do 5x4 on verticals. So I do them all, but almost always it's 4x3 or 1x1. Probably 80% of the time. Then 20% will be 16x9, 16x7. If I do verticals, it'll be 5x4 for verticals. So it's almost square, but not quite. And it's all personal preference. There's no right or wrong to any of that, right? And Gary says, I have a love-hate relationship with the 12-1 at f4 due to size and weight, the same with weight with the 17-1.5, but love the rendering and close focusing of the latter. Yes. Yeah, I'm the same way, right? But again, the 12-100, that would be, I only had one lens. That would be it probably. And Darko says, Maxwell House campaign, can you do a product shoot of your favorite brand, Maxwell House coffee? Gosh, it's just a plastic jar. I don't know how interesting that would be. It wouldn't be very challenging, right? Uh, so short answer is no, I'm not going to do a I'm not really a good product photographer. Um, for me, I like 3x4 for street, 5x4 for portraits, and 16:9 by. Would love to get your thoughts on it. Okay. So yeah, 3x4 is good for street. It's a little bit wide for me, but uh, street, I still feel like 4x3 would be my preference for street over 3x4 is just it's a little bit wide because we're approaching 16:9 territory. I'd rather go 16:9 than 3x4. And Eric says, why do I have to be careful at Reston Town Center? 3 times they stopped me saying no photography. Apparently it's on their website that you have to register with management to take. Really? I did get stopped from taking pictures from the garage. Like I went to the rooftop of the garage. They did ask me to leave. I mean, they weren't rude or anything. They just, I'm sorry, you can't take pictures here. But on the ground, hmm, I didn't really see any problems. I didn't run into it, but that's interesting. You have to register with management. Okay, I'll look at their website though. I want to try to be legit if I go out. But we're just casually taking shots. We're not, doesn't matter though. They see you with a camera. Ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I'm still pissed at National Harbor security guy giving me a hard time. Because on their website it says we encourage photography. And this guy was giving me a hard time. I just play dumb every time, yeah. And Roger says, what do you set up your EV steps as? 1/3 or I do 1 stops. It's just simpler. Because usually I have to jump, when the lighting is, if the lighting is close, uh, usually the ISO jumps. Okay, so if I'm physically doing settings, aperture and shutter speed, I typically have those in one-stop increments, you know? Shutter speed mostly in one-stop increments. Aperture typically in one-stop increments. I mean, kind of once in a while I'll go back to one-third stop, but generally my default is one stop. ISO, it's usually on auto ISO, so I don't, you can't set the increments. So I let basically ISO manage the in between. So if I'm aperture priority, I'll do full stop settings and I'll let the camera adjust the ISO to get the exposure, normalized. Is the OM3 your new go-to camera? Yes, it is. Only camera I take right now, but I've only had it like a week, right? Or 2 weeks. Uh, but next week I might feel like taking my Pentax monochrome or my Leica Deluxe 8, maybe even the Pen F. I don't know. It's the only camera that really does everything, right? That I need it to do. Aside from like the Pentax monochrome, which is kind of unique. But it does everything I need it to do. Whether I want to go birding, just throw the 300 f4 on there, or if I want to do street photography, throw my kit lens on there. It does everything, and it's such a beautiful camera. It just inspires me to shoot. What image viewer are you using? It's called Fast Stone or Fast One. Let me see. Fast Stone. Yeah, I'll just type it in here. Fast Stone. It's a free app. You can download it. Their website says no photography. They need to be a little more specific, though. They got cameras on me. I should have to be able to have my camera on them. No, they won't stop phones. That's what makes no sense. I know. Darko says, Rob, if you would sell your Sony Beast, would you get the Z8 or new Panasonic? I would get the Panasonic, hands down. Um, I think I can get the same high quality glass as a Z8 that Nikon offers for half the money. I mean, I think the Lumix is a little smaller, lighter, but I'm not totally sold on the S1R Mark II for how I would use the camera, which is basically, static scenes. I wouldn't use, I'll never buy like a super telephoto lens for any of my full frame or APS-C cameras. They're just too big and bulky for the focal length that I get. I would rather buy or use my Micro Four Thirds if I need super telephoto kind of range. But if my full frame cameras are not sport action cameras, they are simply, uh, just normal photo shoots type stuff, normal lenses, kit lenses. Like right now, I'm down to 2 lenses for my Sony, I think, or 3. I have my 28 to 60 kit lens, the 55 millimeter Zeiss 1.4, and Tamron 20 millimeter 2.8. I believe those are the only 3 lenses I have. And then my Fuji, that's not a full frame. My Nikon ZF, the only autofocus lens I have is my 60 macro and 28 to 85 kit lens, right? I also have the 50 to 35 D lenses and a bunch of vintage, Nikon f-mount glass, but I primarily use the 24 to 85 VR with the Nikon DF. And then, where am I going with this? Uh, so the Z8, I love the Z8, but it's just it's a big camera, right? I think I'd rather have an S1R, the Mark 1. I think the S1R Mark 1 with either the 20 to 60 kit lens or the 24 to 105 f4. I can get that set up for less than $2,000. I'm pretty much sold on it because I love that camera. It's so big though. That's just what's keeping me back a little bit. I would have bought it again. I had it for a little while, like 2 years ago. Has it been 2 years? Maybe a year and a half, whatever. When I had it, I really liked it, but it was just so big, and I never took it out. But if I sold my Sony right now, my A7R5, I wouldn't miss it. Not even, not even a little bit. It crosses my mind every day. Should I sell that frickin' thing right now before the A7R Mark 6 comes out or something? Because I can still get a pretty good, decent amount of money for it right now. And I'm thinking about it. I don't know if anyone wants to buy it. It's got like 7,000 clicks on it. Not much, right? And most of that is just testing lenses that these manufacturers send me. I'm kind of done with that. I've turned down like 3 lens review offers this week or this past month. I just don't want to do them because they're all for Sony or Canon or whatever. They're just uh, and they're just not cameras I use that much. My initial thought was, if I buy these cameras, I'll get the lenses basically for free. Um, I just have to review them, right? So I can build out a whole system fairly inexpensively. But ultimately, I'm just not using the cameras. So I sold off all the third-party lenses that I reviewed pretty much and just kept the most basics, the kit lens. I was at a shopping center where people taking photos with their phones, and security jumped on me with the OM3. He couldn't explain the difference. That's what I'm saying. It's partially has to do with the television and movies just making photographers look like creepers or something. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So what I would do, right, if it happens to me again, I'm just gonna say, "Oh, I can't use my camera. Okay, I'm gonna use my phone." And if they say that's okay, I want them to think about it. And I say, "Okay, I'm gonna use my phone, but you think about it." I mean, I don't wanna be an ass, I don't wanna be rude to the security person because they're just doing their job. But they have to understand, it needs to get out there that there's no difference between using a phone or using a camera. You're capturing an image. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Mark says, "Sold the A7R5, going back to old M1." Yeah, I feel you. I feel you, man. The A7R5 just is collecting dust now. And Jeff says, "Faststone is a great image viewer. You can do a lot of basic editing with it too. Definitely recommend it if you haven't tried." Yeah, it's fast. Literally fast. I mean, I just like that I used to use Irfan View, but I like Faststone a little better because you can compare images and you can do other stuff, crop thing. I mean, I know you can do a lot of that in Irfan, but For some reason, somebody turned me on to fast stone, and I just kinda lean towards that all the time, and now that's all I use. Um, oh, it's PC only. Oh, I didn't know that, Marcia. Maybe Irfan view, I don't know. And Darko says, since I got my Z6 firmware update, I find the Z6 very good and AF and capable for all portraits and street shooting, and it cost me less than 1,000 CAD. Yeah, the Z6. So you talking about the Mark One? That's interesting. Uh, yeah, the autofocus has always been very good for many years for basic stuff. I mean, it's just when you get into hardcore subject detect like birding and animals and things where you see some pretty big differences. But I've shot lots of portraits, both paid and unpaid, with my OM1, and it's fine. It nails the eye and face all the time. Uh, and for and the OM1 and the OM3, I should say, seems to be even a little better. I've only done a few test shots with it. I need to do a video about this flash. So, uh, newer sent this to me. It's basically like a Godox V1. I was curious because they reached out to me and I was like, "Yeah, I can review your stuff. Do you got one?" I said, "Let me try this one out." Right? They just asked me, "What do you want to review?" It's pretty good. So I think instead of like I'll do like a quick like 3 to 5 minute like about this, but then maybe do a video on flash photography using just one light. That might be more useful than just reviewing this light. What can I say about it? I mean, it's well made. It works well and uh, has a nice interface. And it's cheaper than Godox. That's the review. That's the whole review there in 30 seconds. I mean, some people really get into it though, like Wes Perry and F Stoppers and all those guys, man. They spend so much time doing these reviews. And honestly, how much does it really matter in the end, right? I mean, it's less than 200 bucks for this flash all day long. I've seen it as low as like $160 one time. That's half what you would pay for a Godox. This is I mean, I don't know how long it's gonna last, but it feels and takes every bit as good a picture as the Godox flashes. And it's compatible with the Godox triggers. So I don't know. I'll make a short video on this maybe today. I don't know. I'm kind of running out of steam, but I got to do this, and then I think I'm done with reviews for a while because I've been just turning. Somebody sent me. I got an email though for like an electric bike. That would be kind of cool. It's not really photography related, but I could like use it on a photo walk, right? And get a free bicycle. I mean, doing YouTube has some perks, right? You get free stuff time to time. But Photoscape X and the Mac OS. Hey, Lauren, how are you? Yes, Photoscape X is really good. I agree. I use it all the time actually for doing the uh, grids. So if you look at the thumbnail for the annual meetups, I used Photoscape X to make those grids. I would not recommend using a camera on private property. You may want to use a photo online or otherwise show or sell. Let's be sure you're standing on public property when photos are taken. Yes. I mean, I don't know how much of the town center is public versus private. I guess it would have to be all private because if they can declare no photography, it must be all private there. Uh, my camera is subject to tech for beautiful women. Yep. Okay. Um, I think that's it. I did want to show you guys one more thing. I'm going to talk about it more on Tuesday. Uh, but I got this new gimbal head. This one is much better. Much, much better than the one I had last week. Uh, so this will let me put on my 300 millimeter f4, and basically, you know, I got full 360 rotation and panning, right? 360 panning, 360 rotation, and it's solid. So this is going to be great for taking pictures of Conowingo and doing eagles and birding. Uh, I mean, honestly, I can hand hold a 300 f4 with the M1 Mark II or OM1 Mark II, but sometimes you're standing there for a long time waiting, you know, and it'd be nice not to have that camera hanging around my neck the whole time. I can just kind of stand there with the camera and just be ready. Because after a couple hours, yeah, I get a little tired. So this would be great for like those long trips where you're going to be there for 3, 4, 5 hours taking pictures. And then when you're ready to move, you just put it over your shoulder and you go to the next spot. And this is so this one costs $60. It's on my deal page. But instead of a ball head, this uses ball bearings. So the action is much smoother and it holds more weight. And it was worth paying double because I bought the other one for $30. That's a ball head type. That's a ball head type gimbal. I'm returning that. I'm going to keep this one. So that's it for today, guys. Which tripod head is that? Go to my deal page. You'll see it. It's $59.99, and I'll pull it up for you. This one here. Oh yeah, 59. Yeah, this is the one I purchased March 11th. Uh, this is really good, man. So David Crooks, I know you got the 150 to 600. I think this would be perfect for that. Because that 150 to 600, man, that's a beast of a lens. This would be perfect for uh, that lens. So we got to try this out. What are you doing today anyway, Dave? Maybe, oh, it's raining though. I was thinking we can go to Huntley Meadows and we could try this thing out on your monster lens. Because it's perfect on my 300 f4. This guy. Anyway, I'm not going to pull it out. You guys know. 300 f4 goes on here perfectly. And this monopod is awesome. This is on my deal page too. It's not on sale right now, but even at full price is like 135. It's totally worth it. Uh, this is a Suray AM 404 FL, and it comes with a quick release plate. That's why it's $134. And anyway, I think I showed this last week, but this is a good one. So you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. Remember to click the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, throw me a coffee if you can, donation, whatever. But you guys, it's always a lot of fun to hang out. Thanks for being here. We'll see you again soon. Oh, I got to do my flushing, right?